Hello and welcome to yet another edition of Cedric Nunn's Photo Talks, in which I talk about an image I have made, including its content, context, and aspects of its making. Today I'm going to be speaking about 4 images which were made um, on an assignment in what was to be my first photographic assignment or ex, um, expedition to Mozambique, which was in 1990, and it was at the behest of the Weekly Mail then. And although I wasn't assigned, I was offered to accompany the uh, incredible journalist at the time, the late great Eddie Koch. And we were going to have a look at what Maputo was like in a state of war. Mozambique had been at war for easily a decade, uh, uh, fighting an insurgency, and post liberation insurgency, and the country had been pretty devastated at that point. And I had had an opportunity of seeing what the devastation was like from the monthly packages that my organization Afripix would receive from um, the state media production arm that would send us a monthly package of images that detailed the horrors of that, the massacres and the level of brutality that was being wrought upon Mozambique. Eddie and I flew in to Maputo early January 1990, and although we certainly didn't see the horrors of the front line. There was no real front line. It was a guerrilla insurgency that erupted all over the countryside. Maputo was about there was about 50 to 100 kilometer periphery around Maputo that was protected. So these images, I'm going to show 4 images that depict the everyday life of what it was like for the people of Maputo. And so the first image reads, the caption reads, Maputo Market Woman, Mozambique, 1990. And this is photographed from the balcony of the Costa do Sol that we were staying in. The Costa do Sol in itself is an incredible Mozambican story, Maputo story of this intrepid family that had built this restaurant and with apartments in an Art Deco style, and had stayed on during the war when most whites had fled. They remained, and we were fortunate enough to have lodgings with them. So yes, from my very lodgings, I made this image of these women clearly heading off to markets to sell the few wares that they'd from their gardens, and this is how people were able to sustain themselves. Maputo was quite an incredible sight, with the city pretty much empty of consumer goods. So the shops that you saw were bare everywhere, apart from a few select places that sold either market produce or, for the more elites, imported goods that were made available. And the second image, the caption reads, "A woodcutter takes a midday siesta in Maputo. The city experienced electricity shortages during the war." Mozambique, 1990. And to say that the city experienced electricity shortages is to put it mildly. I mean, I think they were having like 2 to 3 hours of power a day. And I think this image kind of captures the exhaustion of that, trying to meet that demand of the supply of firewood that one has to resort to in a time of crisis. I always had the sense that South Africans, the ordinary South Africans, never really had an understanding of the levels of brutality that were visited in this proxy war to try and thwart a socialist government in Mozambique that was trying to bring, um, trying to bring resources to its people, bring better life to its people. So infrastructure was attacked, and South Africa had a role in this. So the apartheid South Africa supporting Renamo, which had been initially supported by Rhodesia, and then when Rhodesia was liberated, the South Africans took over this task, which was in fact masterminded from Washington, and the infrastructure was the half of it. I mean, there were attacks on clinics, schools, teachers were killed, children abducted, and press ganged into violence. The horror stories that existed then of the atrocities committed on villages, and their fields mined, their villages actually attacked and terrorized, and huge amounts of people the countries had been denuded of people. And it was, we met there with poets and Carlos Cordoza, the acclaimed journalist who was eventually assassinated post the war, ironically. Caravena, the poet, intellectuals and artists who were able to articulate what that war actually meant. So these were, some small attempts to try to depict that. I mean, I'm not really we did take a train back. We took the train back, which was quite a calculated move because we realized that the trains from South Africa to Maputo were the ones likely to be attacked, because, and yeah, these were horror attacks on trains, and people were killed, and the trains looted, because the trains coming in from South Africa would be bringing in goods, or carrying, mostly in fact carrying migrants returning home with goods, and that would be looted. So we were taking a calculated risk by taking the train from Maputo back to South Africa, which had people, but with not much on them. And we saw some of the destruction that was wrought on that railway line. Something like an 80-kilometer journey took us 6 hours or so, of sort of painstakingly creeping along those railway lines that were guarded. I have images of all of this stuff as well, but the images I'm showing now aren't those. I mean, I think I realized at the time that I didn't have the makings of a war photographer, so to speak. And watching the war in Ukraine at the moment is horrific to see what war is like. So the third image is also a fuel-related image, and the caption reads, people queuing for precious fuel. Maputo, Mozambique, 1990. And yes, fuel in a war situation is one of the first things that becomes in really short supply, and these long queues that never seem to move, um, and where people had to wait long hours in the heat, kind of captures it, I think. And the final image is the caption reads, a photographer at work on the streets of Maputo in war-torn Mozambique. And this photographer, unfortunately I don't have his name, was quite a legendary character in Mozambique. He was a fixture on the streets of Mozambique, using a a very old camera, um, um, and he would instantaneously produce mostly your photographs for bureaucratic use, so portraits for identities and permits and things like that. And he was a busy man working relentlessly on the streets of Mozambique. And in a way, it captures, I guess, the kind of the bureaucracy of war, what it's like to be in a war situation where bureaucracy continues, and images are an important part of that. So I think I'll end it here, and I'll say thank you for watching. More information on myself and my work can be found on my website, a link to which, including my blog and email address, can be found in the video description below. If you like this video, this talk, remember to click the like button and press subscribe. It helps the channel grow. Thank you.